Right now, the luxury beauty world is hiding a massive $5.2 billion inventory crisis, a staggering backlog of unsold serums and creams that signals a total market collapse. Major parent companies like Estee Lauder are being forced to buy back millions in unsellable stock from retailers, desperately trying to keep the discounting secret. We're going inside the warehouse doors to reveal the 9 prestige brands whose multi-hundred-dollar products you can now buy for pennies on the dollar, proving the ultimate price hoax is finally over. Brand 1. The skincare reckoning. Billion-dollar brands. Quietly failing. This is the skincare reckoning, and the luxury beauty world is hiding a massive $5.2 billion inventory crisis. While consumer spending on affordable indulgences, the classic lipstick effect, has seen high-end lipstick and fragrance sales surge by double digits, the top-tier serum market is crashing. We're talking about the $300 face creams and $400 essences that are now sitting in silent, stagnant inventory across department store back rooms and corporate warehouses. Brands like Augustinus Bader and La Mer, which once symbolized stealth wealth and exclusivity, have seen their mystique disintegrate. This collapse is being driven by 3 factors: radical ingredient transparency that exposes a mere $5 cost for a $250 retail product, a persistent cost of living crisis that is squeezing out the middle-class aspirational buyer, and a critical wholesale panic that is forcing parent companies like Estee Lauder to buy back millions of dollars of unsold stock from their own retailers. In the first quarter of fiscal year 2024, the Estee Lauder Group's skincare net sales declined by 10%, especially in the critical Asia travel retail segment, a clear warning sign from the top of the prestige market. The consumer is no longer blind to the markup, and the secret outlet sales that used to clear this stock are now becoming desperate public discounts. This is not just a downturn, it is the end of an era built on inflated price and consumer ignorance. The next domino to fall is the entire retail infrastructure that upheld this illusion. The great ingredient hoax. Why nobody buys price anymore. The consumer has finally done the math, and the answer is simple. The $300 serum is a hoax. The average customer now possesses what the industry feared most: ingredient literacy. With the rise of dupe culture powered by social media, consumers are learning that the key active ingredient in a high-end cream, such as stabilized vitamin C or a potent peptide complex, costs the manufacturer less than $5 per finished unit to source. Studies show that roughly 63% of consumers now believe affordable products can perform as well as their luxury counterparts, utterly dismantling the price equals quality myth. Consumers are no longer just reading the front of the box. They are using tools to parse the INCI, International Nomenclature of Cosmetic Ingredients, list, cross-referencing ingredient percentages and active yields. This is why sales in the high-end serum and moisturizing categories have declined by an estimated 9% year over year. Consumers are trading down from brands like Dr. Barbara Sturm, whose cleansers cost upwards of $70, to ingredient-focused rivals like The Ordinary and CeraVe, which offer equivalent actives for under $15. The shift is from brand name trust to demonstrable clinical effectiveness. Customers are now skintellectuals, prioritizing the percentage of retinol or hyaluronic acid over the prestige of the glass jar. This transparency is a direct threat to the entire luxury business model, which relies on enormous markup to finance celebrity endorsements and opulent packaging. If the product inside the jar is effectively commoditized, then the $400 price tag is merely paying for the advertising, and that simply is not sustainable. The next question is, what happens to the actual physical inventory when the belief in the brand completely evaporates? Brand 3, retail decline spiral, store closures and wholesale panic. The wholesale distribution channel for luxury skincare is undergoing a retail implosion, spiraling into a systemic inventory crisis. For years, department stores were the sacred ground of prestige beauty, commanding 35% of the luxury market. But today, they are becoming the industry's greatest liability. Insider reports suggest that major North American retailers are demanding massive stock adjustments, effectively returning up to 40% of their high-end skincare inventory, products from names like Sisley and Valmont that simply aren't selling. This situation forces the brands into desperate measures. Either accept the returns and register a huge quarterly loss, or finance the inventory buyback themselves, trapping millions in unsold product. The brand equity is being destroyed through the necessary but corrosive discounting. To avoid admitting this failure publicly, brands are increasingly utilizing private inventory sales, discreet, off-market transactions where their old stock is sold in bulk to liquidators or through unadvertised websites, often at 80% off the original retail price. The supply chain has choked on overproduction and over-optimism, creating a backlog with a staggering potential value of nearly $5 billion in wasted or deeply discounted beauty stock. The wholesale panic is turning the velvet rope of luxury into a liquidation line, and the systemic consequences will soon hit the holding companies. Brand 4, the Clinique crisis and Estee drama. Parent companies in freefall. The number that shows the system is failing is 21%. The Estee Lauder companies, the holding group for heritage brands like Clinique and its namesake Estee Lauder, is facing what analysts are calling a systemic system failure. The collapse of luxury skincare is not just about product. It is about corporate overexposure. In the first quarter of fiscal year 2024, the Estee Lauder Company's skincare net sales decreased by 21%, an unprecedented decline largely driven by problems in Asia travel retail and the massive need to reset retailer inventory levels. This crisis is a direct consequence of a decades-long strategy that relied on outlet saturation and aging clientele. Clinique, once the gold standard of dermatologist-developed skincare, is now routinely found in deep discount outlets and mass market sites like Amazon, destroying its prestige pricing power. Its legacy customer base, who drove sales of its dramatically different moisturizing lotion, are no longer enough to offset the total lack of connection with Gen Z. This problem is compounded at the corporate level, where internal reports detail massive, unadvertised, friends and family liquidation sales. These are not promotional events, but desperate attempts to clear out stock that, if officially returned by retailers, would result in even greater losses. The sheer volume of inventory forced back onto the holding company's balance sheet is a tangible sign that the old luxury empire is now crumbling from the inside. We are witnessing the breakdown of parent companies whose brands, while once strong, have become too slow and too expensive for the modern consumer. The scale of the financial distress here is historically significant. Estee Lauder's full-year net sales for fiscal year 2025 fell by 8%, totaling $14,326 million, with the skincare category alone posting $7,908 million in sales, marking a painful volume decline. Compounding the issue, the company announced restructuring costs that expanded from an initial $700 million estimate to a range between $1.2 billion and $1.6 billion, proving the inventory correction is far deeper than publicly acknowledged. Brands like Clinique and Estee Lauder suffer acutely because their reliance on the pre-pandemic travel retail channel has backfired. What once accounted for 1/3 of group revenue now hovers closer to 15%, leaving their stock stranded. To try and regain relevance, Clinique has pivoted to launching post-procedure treatment franchises in China. But these efforts are seen as too little, too late to offset the years of neglect and the destructive saturation of their core lines across every possible discount channel. The fundamental problem is that the middle market luxury space is now owned by digitally native competitors, leaving these heritage giants stranded. Their only recourse is to cut costs and slash operating margins, which fell by over 5%, confirming that maintaining these aging brands is financially draining the entire conglomerate. Brand 5. Heritage hype. Hangover. The brands that couldn't innovate heritage. Luxury brands are facing a crippling hype hangover because they failed to innovate and attract the next generation. La Mer, whose best-selling Crème de la Mer remains essentially the same formula it launched decades ago, highlights the critical failure to evolve. The brand relies on its proprietary miracle broth, but the average customer now knows that its chief occlusive agent is a low-cost ingredient, making its $380 price tag for a 60-milliliter jar an unsustainable price juxtaposition. This aging heritage has created a vulnerability that younger, science-focused brands have brutally exploited. Then there is Augustinus Bader. Initially achieving massive celebrity-driven success with its rich cream, sold at $305 for 50 milliliters, the brand relied on its patented trigger factor complex, or TFC8, to justify its extreme cost. However, the hype has expired. The perceived scarcity and proprietary science have been exposed by ingredient-literate consumers who question the need for such an astronomical markup when comparable, scientifically proven ingredient platforms are offered elsewhere for a fraction of the cost. The brand is now resorting to constant gifting sets and holiday bundles, like a $675 12 Days of Bader set, which dilutes its exclusivity and reveals the desperation to move high-volume inventory. The brands that charge the most must offer a demonstrable evolving value, and both La Mer and Bader are learning that a 30-year-old formula or a fleeting moment of celebrity endorsement is no longer enough to secure the next decade of sales. The Achilles heel for both of these brands is their failure to connect with the post-elevation customer, a term for the modern consumer who requires high-quality creativity and measurable results, not just a label. La Mer, as part of the struggling Estee Lauder portfolio, saw sales for its flagship brand decline sharply in the third quarter of fiscal year 2025, driven by that same weakness in travel retail and a general consumer preference for lower-priced alternatives. Analysts note that these brands are being hit hardest because their markups are disproportionate to the actual clinical data they provide. Augustinus Bader, while initially successful, has not adequately refreshed its core narrative, allowing niche competitors to steal market share by focusing on single potent actives at much lower price points. Bader's reliance on capital expenditure to build brand identity, coupled with a lack of sustained product innovation beyond its signature cream, has made it vulnerable. The constant promotional bundling, a tactic that would have been unthinkable for a brand claiming true luxury just 5 years ago, is a measurable marker of inventory distress, forcing them to sell several items together just to clear stock that otherwise would sit stagnant. Brand 6. The organic and natural betrayal. fake clean skincare scandals. The sacred promise of clean beauty has been betrayed, and consumers are responding by abandoning expensive, pseudo-natural brands. The term clean has no regulatory definition, allowing brands like Tata Harper and Tatcha to charge exorbitant premiums based on a perception of purity that is now frequently under intense legal scrutiny. One major clean luxury brand, Tata Harper, was hit with a 60-day notice of intent to sue under California's Proposition 65 for allegedly exposing consumers to an undisclosed synthetic chemical, dethanolamine, or DEA, in one of its product sets. This is the clean beauty backlash. Consumers are realizing that natural does not automatically mean effective or worth the price of a $120 Tata Harper resurfacing mask. Furthermore, the reliance on natural ingredients introduces stability and quality control issues. As a defense mechanism against falling sales, which have forced Tatcha's parent company Unilever to acknowledge a challenging market, these brands are frantically moving stock. They are heavily pushing product via elaborate bundle sales and highly discounted gifting sets, which effectively function as stealth clearance events, devaluing the perceived price of flagship products like Tatcha's $69, the water cream. The middle-class buyer is now highly skeptical, seeing the litigation and the deep discounting as proof that the price tag never represented quality, only highly profitable marketing. The market is showing that the price of a lie is total brand erosion. The current regulatory environment, especially in the United States, fails to adequately define terms like clean, leaving brands wide open to legal challenges and consumer mistrust. While Tata Harper has received environmental accolades for innovation, such as winning a Gold Award for its refillable Waterlock moisturizer in 2025, these positive achievements are overshadowed by lawsuits questioning the absolute purity of the formulations. The notice of intent to sue specifically targeted a baby gift set for containing diethanolamine, a known Proposition 65 chemical, alleging a failure to provide clear warning. This is a public relations disaster for a brand built entirely on being 100% natural and non-toxic. For brands like Tatcha, the price pressure is coming from all sides, forcing them to participate heavily in digital marketplaces like Amazon and Shopee, channels that inherently erode prestige. Selling a once exclusive $69 cream next to a $15 competitor necessitates volume over margin, a terminal sentence for a luxury position. These brands are trapped. They cannot reduce their extreme prices without admitting their massive markup, but they cannot maintain their high prices when their core marketing promise of purity is legally challenged. Brand 7. The price gougers. Brands that push their luck too far. The most audacious brands, the sheer price gougers, are collapsing because they push their luck too far. Take Dr. Barbara Sturm. Her signature $240 hyaluronic serum and $100 cleansing cream relied entirely on an astronomical markup and celebrity endorsement, often failing to demonstrate proprietary science that couldn't be found in much cheaper alternatives. Her high-profile ingredient, purslane, is an antioxidant that costs pennies per gram to source, yet it helps justify markups of over 3,000% on a single product. The brand's pricing model was a clear case of price manipulation, designed to achieve an illusion of exclusivity that the ingredient deck simply did not support. This lack of unique scientific grounding made it hyper-vulnerable to consumer literacy. This same hubris plagues Sisley, the classic example of an old money brand that priced itself out of its own market. While its $570 Cislea Lintegral Anti-Age boasts dozens of natural extracts, the core consumer, even the wealthy one, is now questioning whether that complexity is worth $550 more than effective streamlined competitors. Industry leaks confirm that Sisley's stock is now facing severe pressure in key Asian markets, where its flagship cream is seen discounted by nearly 50% on secondary, non-official channels, validating the suspicion that their Western pricing was pure, maximized profit margin. The consequences of this over-optimism are playing out in the dark corners of the supply chain, as warehouse liquidators are now routinely purchasing huge lots of Sisley and Sturm stock to sell at 70 to 80% off on the gray market, a final embarrassing step before total obsolescence. Dr. Barbara Sturm represents the peak of celebrity-driven, influencer-dependent pricing that has no root in unique clinical intellectual property. The core controversy surrounding her brand stems from the early 2020s when physicians publicly questioned the scientific basis for her treatments, stating that putting complex biological components into a cream could be false hope in a jar. Despite her acquisition by Puig in 2023, which provided a financial safety net, the underlying consumer skepticism about the astronomical markups on basic ingredient platforms remains a heavy drag on organic volume growth. For Sisley, the issue is less about hype and more about an antique pricing structure. While they produce high-quality formulas, their strategy failed to account for the modern wealthy consumer's demand for value transparency. The public discounting in Asian markets, often a testing ground for inventory clearance, signals that the brand is finally giving up the fight against its bloated inventory levels, sacrificing brand equity for immediate cash flow. This is a fatal move. Once the rich see the maximum profitable margin exposed on the gray market, they stop paying the retail price forever, leaving the brands with no premium customer base at all. Brand 8. The Unthinkable Fall. What's happening behind the velvet rope? The unthinkable has happened. The ultimate aspirational status symbols are now quietly liquidating their inventory. We're talking about Brand 9, names like Valmont or Revive, that once commanded fierce loyalty and pricing that signaled undisputed ultra-prestige. These are brands whose customers typically spend thousands annually. Yet, they are now facing a quiet, total collapse of exclusivity. The ultimate sign of desperation is the use of the discreet online reseller. Insiders reveal that brands whose $400 products once sat under glass at Bergdorf Goodman are now selling pallets of unsold stock to bulk inventory buyers, who then move it onto hidden, membership-only resale sites at discounts of up to 75%. This is the absolute desperation. This activity is destroying their carefully maintained mystique because the rich know their status symbol is now a bargain bin item. Revive, for example, which was bought by Chinese beauty giant Xiong Group, is facing internal pressure to clear stock following years of over-forecasting. Valmont, famous for its $270 Prime Renewing Pack, has been quietly running secret offers and flash sales to move inventory. This quiet collapse is not just about sales figures. It's about a severe breakdown of internal culture, leadership stability, and the complete destruction of the perception of scarcity. When the symbol of aspiration can be found on a discreet clearance site, the luxury game is over. The crisis for brands like Revive is fundamentally a channel failure compounded by poor forecasting. Their reliance on high-cost exclusive department store counters and high-margin direct sales failed to move volumes during the 2024 and 2025 economic slowdowns. With the Estee Lauder Group reporting major drops in their own gross profits due to excess and obsolescence charges, these ultra-prestige brands, lacking the parent company's capital, face a faster and more brutal inventory reckoning. Valmont, specifically, must contend with the perception that its true business lies in infrastructure and agriculture, Valmont Industries, rather than its small, exclusive skincare line, making it highly susceptible to strategic culling if profitability doesn't justify the effort. The quiet liquidation via secondary online resellers, sites that operate outside of official brand channels, is a tactical necessity to protect their remaining relationship with high-end retailers, but it is a desperate measure that permanently signals inventory bloat to the few people who still pay full price. The rich customer who once saw the $400 product as a symbol of status now sees a symbol of liquidation, permanently breaking the aspirational connection. Brand 9. Rich people. Left. The end of aspirational skincare. The most critical turning point in this luxury collapse is the mass exodus of the ultra-wealthy buyer, leaving these brands stranded with only the middle-class consumer. The truly affluent have shifted their behavior from visible logo luxury to stealth wealth brands. They are no longer buying the $300 creams featured prominently in department stores. Instead, they are focusing on exclusive clinical-grade lines like Biologique Recherche or Environ, sold only through private consultations. This shift is demonstrated by the fact that global prestige skincare sales were flat or down, yet clinical, doctor-led skincare sales grew by an estimated 8% in the same period. This leaves the collapsing brands like Clinique and Dr. Barbara Sturm with only the aspirational buyer who is now financially squeezed by inflation and the cost of living crisis. This middle-class consumer is the first to be priced out of the market entirely, creating an impossible chasm. The final destruction of mystique occurs the moment discounts, which were once secret, become public knowledge. When a $240 serum is suddenly available at 40% off on a major retailer's website, the aspirational dream is shattered forever. The market's final warning signal is the brand restructuring and layoffs now affecting major groups. For example, the Estee Lauder companies announced a reorganization to cut costs, a clear admission that the inventory and sales forecast model for their luxury skin division has failed catastrophically. The market is preparing to liquidate, not to rally. The term post-elevation era is now being used by analysts to describe the state of luxury, meaning that brands can no longer rely on merely elevating their price to drive desire. The wealthy consumer has adopted a new definition of status, one based on access and knowledge, not branding. They prefer the clinical exclusivity of Biologique Recherche's Lotion P50, which costs $40 and is notoriously hard to acquire without consultation, over a brightly packaged, widely available $300 cream. This creates a lethal double squeeze on the old luxury brands. The top-tier customer has left for genuine stealth wealth, and the lower-tier aspirational buyer is simply choosing effective, scientific dupes, like the $5 hyaluronic acid from The Ordinary. The resulting inventory surplus forced the Estee Lauder companies to take massive impairment charges, totaling $815 million on goodwill and other intangible assets in fiscal year 2025, a clear admission that the value of their once sacred brands has been permanently downgraded. The 2026 forecast: who will cease operations, who gets bought, and what you should buy instead. Prediction: at least 3 of these 9 brands will be completely delisted or acquired at a massive discount by the end of 2026. The coming year will see a wave of acquisitions focused on science-backed skincare and digitally native brands, leaving the heritage brands vulnerable. We predict Brand 1, Clinique, will be fully divested by its parent company or heavily repositioned into the mass market channel, destroying the last vestiges of its prestige. Brand 4, Augustinus Bader, may be acquired by a larger conglomerate like L'Oréal to gain its patented technology, but at a fraction of its former valuation, as buyers seek proprietary molecules over celebrity hype. Brand 8, Sisley, and Brand 9, Valmont, are the most likely to quietly cease operations or become non-existent in major Western markets due to their over-reliance on the maximum profit margin. The consumer's final warning: avoid buying the heavily discounted stock from private liquidators. While the price is tempting, this stock is often nearing its 2-year expiration date, meaning your bargain may fail to deliver the potency you paid for. Warranty voided. The era of the $500 moisturizer is officially over. The consolidation phase of the luxury market is already underway, driven by the need for surviving conglomerates to acquire genuine innovation. Conglomerates are looking to improve their profit margins, which dipped to an 18 to 19% average in 2024 by shedding non-performing luxury assets. Brands like Tata Harper, Brand 5, despite its clean beauty litigation, possess a highly desirable farm-to-face narrative that a company like Unilever could fully integrate and sanitize, leading to an acquisition focused on branding and distribution rather than just technology. The high-risk, high-price brands like Sturm and Sisley will find no major buyers, as their business models are based on markups, not scalable, unique intellectual property. They are simply too exposed to be salvaged. The smartest consumer move is to focus investment on brands that prioritize supply chain excellence and resilience, the exact areas the collapsing brands failed to maintain, ensuring that every dollar spent goes toward verified actives and proven quality control, not just the marketing budget. The prestige skincare market is fracturing, driven by consumer literacy and systemic overproduction. If you want to stay ahead of the next brand crisis and understand which luxury empires are collapsing, hit that subscribe button. Tell us in the comments, which high-priced serum or cream did you abandon once you learned its ingredients?